Are we seeing an increase in carjackings? I mean, we saw an increase in the price of used cars and trucks go up by 40%. That's a very high number. I think people are really struggling to afford cars, and it's really sad because you see the main contributing factor of this to be markups done by dealers of 35 and 65%, and you see them raking in record profits. So as the price goes up, their profits go up as well. They're not just accounting for, an incurrence of production cost. They're just raising the price as a part of their regular dealership markup, and people are really struggling. They need cars to go get groceries, go to work, what have you.
I think this is a huge misunderstanding of why people are taking cars. And I'll start with the fact, with your point on violent crime. Across the country, yes, violent crime decreased between 2020 and 2023 for a variety of reasons, not least of which being the end of the pandemic. But in major metropolitan cities, violent crime is still up. In fact, in D.C., violent crime is up 39%. Carjackings have doubled, among other metrics. But on the issue of carjackings, the cars are not being stolen because people need cars to go get groceries. The cars are stolen and taken to chop shops where they are then torn apart and sold for profit, or they are taken to use in the commission of other crimes and then dumped elsewhere. So the vast majority of cars that are stolen in the nation's capital are often found later on abandoned, sometimes destroyed, not to mention the fact that a lot of the individuals responsible for these carjackings are, one, repeat offenders, actually 80 to 90% of carjackings in D.C. are committed by the same group of 10 to 20 people. But also many of them are actually too young to even really drive, as was the case in the infamous story about an Uber driver who was carjacked by a group of teens. Those teens were too young to drive. They were between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. They ended up crashing the car and killing the Uber driver.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a story that has become all too commonplace in these major liberal cities, which is the mass exodus of businesses from these cities because they can't operate due to out of control crime and chaos. Okay, now a lot of times these businesses, they can't make money because they're being robbed or shoplifted out of business. But sometimes you have situations like what happened with In-N-Out Burger in Oakland, where they closed down a restaurant for the first time ever, not because the restaurant couldn't make money, but because it was so dangerous to operate in the area that they did not feel comfortable having an In-N-Out in Oakland where their employees and customers would have to come in order to eat the food there, right? So it didn't matter that they actually were making money and that it's a profitable location. The crime was so bad that it became dangerous just to operate in the area, forcing the first shutdown ever for that restaurant, okay? And these types of shutdowns are shutdowns that you're seeing all across the country. And lo and behold, we got to talk about another story involving a major chain and or retailer shutting down due to out of control crime in a liberal city. And this story takes place in Washington, D.C. I've done plenty of stories about D.C. It is a crime-infested hellhole ran by woke Democrats, mostly so-called people of color, right, that are running this city into the ground. So with that being said, we got to talk about this CVS that's in Columbia Heights that has been plagued by theft. Now, this has been a story that has been around for months now, right? The local news media has done so many stories on this CVS experiencing shoplifting problems. But despite that, the woke revolutionaries in D.C., the D.C. liberals, decided to defend the shoplifters, despite the fact that, again, it seems like the store couldn't even stock its shelves due to so much shoplifting. Take a look.
A CVS store in D.C.'s Columbia Heights neighborhood being repeatedly targeted by thieves. Take a look at this video here. Now the shelves are bare and empty. Fox 5 Sierra Fox in Northwest after checking it out and hearing from customers that are concerned about the 14th Street location.
Take a look here. When you walk into this CVS, you think the store is closing because there's barely anything on the shelves. In fact, the only items in stock are the ones that are locked up. I did ask an employee what gets stolen the most, and they just laughed and said everything. I spoke with multiple customers who say it's frustrating.
It makes me not want to shop there, to be honest. I go and get my prescription, and then when I need other things, I go elsewhere because there's nothing there to get.
According to people who work at the CVS in Columbia Heights, a big group of kids, like 45 or more, walk in before school, after school, and late at night to steal chips and drinks. They even throw the food and beverages on the ground and stomp on them, leaving behind a big mess. Fox 5 did witness teens doing that while inside the business and even after they walked outside. Staff at CVS have been alerted that thieves are aware of when new shipments come in, and that's when they target the store. We're told that street vendors are allegedly paying people to go in and steal stuff so they can resell it. When we walked down 14th Street in Northwest D.C., we did notice street vendors selling toothbrushes, men and women body wash, car fresheners, as well as laundry and cleaning supplies, which are some of the same items no longer available at CVS. However, there is no direct evidence at this time that it did come from the store. Some D.C. residents we spoke with actually expressed sympathy towards the people wiping out the aisles.
I'm stuck. I mean, it's bad to do. At the same time, they're probably doing it for a reason. They need those things, but they shouldn't just be going in and clearing the shelves because this isn't sustainable for the store.
A lot of folks actually can't afford any of the things in there. I'm not saying that stealing has to be the solution to that, right? However, I don't know, maybe if the city could provide more accessible resources to unhoused or under-income folks that can provide them like hair care, bodily care, hygiene care, etc., that could be an option.
Now, that CVS on 14th Street in particular does have one security guard inside during business hours, but customers and employees we spoke with say they don't think that's enough and that they want to see these shoplifters held accountable for their actions and prosecuted. We did reach out to CVS for this report, and we're waiting to hear back.
Yeah, so you had the woke revolutionary communists defending this, basically saying that the city should do a better job of providing hair care to these shoplifting teenagers, okay? These teenagers who apparently are pretty smart because they know when the shipments come in, so they know when things are in stock. They go in and they quite literally rob the store out of business, right? They shoplift the store out of business. They go in there, they take the stuff, they walk out, and nothing is done about it. And then you have the local residents, again, because they're woke, because they're liberal, they're trying to make the kids out to be victims. Well, I'm sure they're doing it for a reason, right? I'm sure they're hungry, right? They need something to eat, okay? This is the excuses that they make. Again, it's ridiculous stuff. And what's just as ridiculous is the local news media being so naive about the fact that clearly and obviously there's a business model going on with this, okay? When you talk about these kids stealing stuff, and then it just so happens that this stuff appears down the street being sold by local vendors on the street. What does that tell you, right? It tells you that it's being stolen out the store and then being sold on the street, okay? But according to local news media, there's no direct evidence of that, even though you know that that's what's happening, right? That's what's happening. There's a whole business, okay? You steal a whole bunch of stuff. You pay the person to steal it. They put it in a warehouse, and then they distribute it to their street retailers, and then the street retailers resell it, right? Because the regular retailers like a CVS, they don't have the stuff anymore. People don't go to CVS to shop, so they have to go to a street vendor in order to purchase basic goods, right? Which again, this is like a communist dream, okay? This is what they want, okay? This is the so-called redistribution of wealth that these people envision, okay? Take from a big chain, okay? Because it doesn't matter. They could just eat the loss, right? And then just give it to the little guy, right? Let them sell it on the street, okay? And let them make money. Again, absolutely amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing stuff. So, with that being said, nobody should be surprised that lo and behold, just a few months later, you now have this same CVS that was plagued by theft that these woke liberals were defending, being shoplifted by teenagers, is now closing down, right? Because it's probably unprofitable to operate.
CVS will be closing a busy store in the heart of a Northwest neighborhood.
This after thieves stole hundreds of items in a robbery we first told you about 3 months ago. And this is video of what those shelves look like right after.
All right, Bob's in Columbia Heights this morning with the CVS and what some local customers have to say. Bob? Hey, Steve, Marissa, those shelves look pretty much the same. The store just opened, and if you look in there, a lot of the shelves that were cleared off in October remain bare this morning. I want to show you that video again. This is just one of many of these kind of retail thefts that we've documented here in recent months on Fox 5. This is the store at 14th and Irving Streets here in Columbia Heights. CVS, in a statement to Fox 5, isn't saying why it's closing the store, but it's just 3 months after this happened here. The main thing CVS is saying that it's going to transfer its customers' prescriptions to the CVS store in Adams Morgan on Columbia Road, noting that's only about 7/10 of a mile to the west. There's another store on Georgia Avenue about a half mile to the east. But customers who we've spoken to this morning realize there's probably a good reason why this store is being closed.
Now, before we get into this, I want you to notice, again, CVS doing what a lot of these woke chains are doing. This is why, I only can feel so bad for some of these retailers, because they don't tell the truth. One thing I will applaud In-N-Out Burger for doing is telling the truth. They said straight up, yeah, it's just too unsafe to operate here, right? Like, the crime is out of control, the violence is out of control, it's too unsafe, this is why we're leaving. CVS, on the other hand, Walgreens too, I've done stories about this, where they won't say anything. They won't tell you the truth. Well, we're not going to cite any reasons why we're leaving, because they're afraid of backlash from the woke revolutionaries who cried foul when retailers like CVS were sounding the alarm during the pandemic on what was happening, right? The massive retail theft that was happening across the country. The retailers were like, yeah, we're losing millions of dollars, billions of dollars, okay, on theft. And then the woke activists, people like AOC, got mad and upset about it. So after the woke activists got mad and upset, they stopped citing reasons why they're leaving, right? So they don't tell you exactly why they're leaving. They just give you some vague statement when we all know the reason why. The reason why is because they're being shoplifted out of business. But you can't say that anymore because it's racist. Again, amazing. We really do live in cuckoo for Cocoa Puff world. And some of these corporate chains, for as much as I feel bad for the individuals that work at these stores losing their jobs, I don't feel bad for necessarily the chain itself, because a lot of them have bought it on themselves, right? They support Democrats, they support these liberals that support these policies, and then they become a victim of these policies, and then they don't want to tell the truth about the policies because they're afraid of getting backlash from the left, the same people that are responsible for your company losing money in the first place. Again, it's amazing how this works. So again, I can't be too upset, okay? I can't feel too bad for some of these companies because they're not coming out here and telling the world that, hey, yes, we're leaving because of liberal policies. This is what they should be saying.
I guess it's better off safety, usually, if they're getting robbed a lot. You don't want your employees to be put in a bad situation.
So you don't blame them for closing?
No, not at all. I don't blame them. I would.
It's pathetic. It's very sad to see that's the behavior of our next generation, to be destroying properties, putting people out of jobs. I think it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
Now, others we've spoken to say they don't condone what's happening to these stores, but they can understand that there is, in some cases, desperation here in the community.
Wow.
And you guys mentioned it earlier in the show. Just yesterday, the D.C. Council considered on first reading that secure D.C. legislation, one of its provisions would crack down on retail theft. A little late for this particular store here in Columbia Heights.
Wow. Again, I can't, it's hard for me to feel bad for the people in that local community. And it's hard for me to feel bad for some of these chains. Now, yeah, I feel bad for the chains that come out here and tell the truth and say, yeah, we're leaving because of liberal policies, because we're being shoplifted out of existence. Feel bad for you, okay? Praying for you, okay? But some of these other stores, that don't want to tell the truth, and then you got these people that they're coming out here and they're essentially saying, well, we kind of understand why these people are robbing these stores. Is because, they need to eat. They're hungry, okay? They can't afford a toothbrush, right? This is what these people are saying. And it's so ridiculous. Like, you're defending criminals. But again, this is why you have situations like what happened in Chicago, where Lori Lightfoot was essentially voted out because of crime. And then they put a worse far-left lunatic in power to replace her, because these people, again, they don't seem to realize the actual root cause of the crime, which is the individuals themselves committing these acts. They believe that these individuals are committing these acts because they're so desperate. And look, here's the thing. If you want to go with the economic desperation argument, okay, fine. But make sure you throw in there they're experiencing economic desperation because of Biden, right? Because of Biden. Make sure you throw that in there as well, too. Because we're well past the peak of the pandemic. And this wasn't happening when Trump was in office, right? When we had much better economic conditions. So if you want to go with the economic hardship argument for why this is happening, okay, cool. Well, you can blame Biden. Either way, you look at it, either way you square it, it comes back to liberal, progressive, Democrat policy. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.